what's up? I hope you're doing great out there wherever you are in the world. So in this video, I just want to share a thing or two about what I learned during my backpacking trip in Vietnam. So it was February to March this year. It was just a short trip, maybe around 3 weeks. But what makes it special, it's actually my first time backpacking ever. And it was fun. And having lived in the Philippines for the past, 20 plus years, and having been able to go out, even just for 3 weeks, it was actually quite fun. Maybe I want to do this again sometime in the future. But without any further ado, these are the things I learned during my backpacking trip in Vietnam. But disclaimer though, I don't encourage backpacking trip during this pandemic. Maybe after, alright? Let's go! Alright, so first one on the list, prepare to get your plans ruined. So why do I say this? Well, actually, before I even went to my backpacking trip, first there has to be some planning involved, right? And initially, I was doing all these detailed list of things that I want to do, the transportation routes I'll be taking, the places that I'll be visiting, the food I'll be eating, and it continued on even up to the day of the trip itself. I had a master plan in my mind. But the moment the plane lands on the destination, you realize, oh, this is gonna be really different. And that's okay. It's part of traveling. Not every plan, goes as planned. And in hindsight, that's when I realized spontaneity in traveling, it's what makes the experience better, to be honest. So I'm sure many other backpackers have done this already, but there was this one time where I didn't do anything as planned. So I decided to walk around the city, and just see the sights, see the people, see the everyday life, see the food that they have to offer. And they came across this photo gallery. It seems fancy, it seems pretty cool. So I went in and found this really cool gallery of everything about Vietnam. Basically, the photographer travels all across Vietnam and takes shots. And I don't remember how many film cameras he has, but it's quite a lot, maybe even 100 or so. And luckily, while staying there for around like 15 minutes or so, I managed to meet the owner himself. The first thing he asked when he knew I was a Filipino, he asked, "Oh, you're president?" Yeah. Well, my fellow Filipinos probably know this as well. Like, what happens next when we talk about the president. Anyway, so these are the types of experiences that I enjoyed the most in my backpacking trip. Spontaneously meeting with a photographer, a famous photographer at that, managing to meet with him during a short span of time that I was in his gallery. And by the way, that was a photo gallery by Long Than, a famous Vietnamese photographer. Maybe I'll place a photo somewhere here. And that's basically the first thing that I learned during my backpacking trip in Vietnam. I cannot stress how important it is to keep trying new things. I mean, since you're traveling already, you might as well, find things to do, find new things to eat, explore. Make it your playground. And like I mentioned, this was actually my first backpacking trip, so I had plenty of firsts during that time. Like first time traveling alone, first time eating pho in Vietnam itself, and first time eating a lot of delicious Vietnamese cuisines. There's just a unique experience when you get to experience new cultures that are very different from yours. And I'm all very enthusiastic about this because usually in my culture in the Philippines, backpacking isn't usually something that you think off the bat. Not everyone thinks of a gap year or something. It's usually more for Western people. If you were gonna ask me, I think it's something that Filipinos can also engage into. It's a really fun experience. And I'd say one of the most memorable experiences I've had is when I rode the overnight train across Vietnam. That was a great experience. It was the first time I experienced like an 8-hour train ride. No, and I'm saying this from the perspective that we don't have a train system that's as good here in the Philippines. So I think that's one box out of my bucket list. So yeah, keep trying new things. You know, hostels taught me a lot about what you really need. Well, number one thing that you'd notice when you first go into a hostel, it's the vibe, it's the simplicity, it's the, I don't know, serenity that you experience once you get in there. And there's also different kinds of people coming from across the world, just traveling around, having fun. And the fact that you don't really have to bring much with you actually, you just need to bring the essentials. So it kind of gives you this, perspective or thought that you don't really need much to get by in everyday life. You just need the essentials. And that's what I learned from staying in different hostels and Airbnbs throughout my brief 3-week stay in Vietnam. I mean, definitely it's not for everyone. Definitely, I wouldn't say it's family friendly unless your family isn't that really particular about that. But for backpackers like myself, or for those who want to backpack in the future, well, I'd recommend you stay in hostels or maybe couch surfing or Airbnbs. I don't know when the situation will mellow down, but since vaccines are slowly being manufactured across the world, probably in a year's time it will be fine. But don't take my word from it. I'm not an expert, right? And I guess it's something personal as well. Growing up, I never really was that materialistic. You could probably say I am a minimalist in that sense. But growing up, I always tried to be simple. I just wanted to get, or I just want to have what I need, not really want everything. You know what I mean? But yeah, in terms of simplicity, backpacking teaches you a lot. I assume this goes without saying, but don't just travel, try your best to learn about the place as well, because there are a lot of, customs, traditions, and even the language that you can learn of. It's a new country after all. It's like you're in a new world or planet and all that. So one of my favorite things that I did in Vietnam was when I learned how to make Vietnamese coffee, and I had a teacher who taught me how to do that. It was a fun experience. I enjoyed making Vietnamese coffee. Up until I went home, I kept on making it. Unfortunately, the Vietnamese coffee I bought from Vietnam is got depleted, sadly. But not only that, I also learned how to make a Vietnamese lantern. It's one of those that you typically see in Vietnamese cities, but it's particularly very emphasized in Hoi An. So Hoi An is a World Heritage Site. Now I'm just gonna show this picture over here of how beautiful it is. So it's one of my favorite places in Vietnam, honestly. And probably it's because mainly of the lanterns themselves. They're very beautiful. And although there's been somewhat increase in tourism over the years, I still think Hoi An has its charm as one of the best places to visit in Vietnam. So I definitely recommend checking that place out when you go to Vietnam. And that, guys, are the 4 things that I learned during my backpacking trip in Vietnam. I hope you enjoyed that video. This is actually my first video. Why not make a YouTube channel, right? So if you enjoyed that video and you wanna see more, subscribe down below, and I'll see you in the next time.